Yeah, let's get rolling.
Yeah. So welcome to the podcast, guys. It's your boy Matty Ice here with my guy Kanan Becker, aka Ghost Pirate Entertainment. And this
What's up, guys?
I think this is my fifth episode or sixth episode. So see, I did a couple episodes like last year, and like I just had such a hard time trying to get people to come on. And then like the past couple months, I feel like I've had some luck of like getting people to come on and talk. So thanks for joining me, by the way. So
No problem, man. You got to tweet people.
yeah, you do. So it's like it's a lot.
Twitter's the way. Like
Yeah,
it's crazy. You can get celebrities, you can get directors, like you can get big names. It's weird. It
I,
doesn't even matter how small your podcast is if
I
you
know.
tweet them.
See, or that or like Instagram. So it's like I think that's how I got you was through Instagram. And
Yeah, but Twitter works a lot
yeah.
better
Okay. Yeah.
at messaging people. I don't know why, but if you talk to like I have a friend who does Sledgehammer Horror,
Yeah.
and like he interviews like so many different names, and that's what he does. He just tweet tweets them a message, or he'll tag them if either way on Twitter, and for some reason they react.
Oh, there
Like
you go.
like
That's
I
good.
I talk to like huge celebrities on Twitter all the time. Like it's
Oh, there you
weird.
go. Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree.
it's weird.
I agree. Like I've had some weird stuff where it's like someone actually responds. It's like I didn't think they would respond to a
Yeah.
thing I tweeted. It's just
Yep.
can you so yeah.
It's
It's just
just
got
something about it. It's a more intimate setting in a strange way. I think it's because uh from the out, like you're not as vulnerable. It's
yeah.
like it's not your phone, like it's not directly to your phone, so you're not giving someone your phone number. You
Yeah.
can easily block people on Twitter.
Yeah.
That's the problem with Instagram, and that's why you get less responses with Instagram, but you can't block people.
Yeah.
So you get like a that's why it's hard. Like I don't respond as quickly on Instagram. Like I just happened to see your message.
Yeah.
Um, but like it threw you into the trash. It threw you into the junk folder. But luckily, I was able to say your message in there and be like, oh shit, no, I don't want this to be junk.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not as big of a fan of Instagram's messaging setup. But anyway,
Yeah. Good to
so
know. Twitter for
yeah.
future use.
Where are you from? Are you from UK?
No, I'm actually from America. I don't know. Like I like my parents are from here. Like grew up in New Jersey, and like I've always kind of just had this like just
Yeah, you sound very much like a UK accent.
yeah. So like
That's
for
cool though. That's
yeah.
a good thing.
So for me, it's either like English, like like from the UK, or like Australian, or like New
Yep.
Zealand, like that.
I was actually going to say New Zealand next.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
always a funny thing that people always ask me. It's like, oh, that did you come here from like I'm like, no, I grew up in the same area, like near Philadelphia, like my whole life, and it's just
It's cool though, because it sounds very much like one of those accents.
yeah.
So,
It's just like I just use it to my advantage because people think I'm different. So I'm like, hey,
yeah. Yep.
come join my thing. Just
Totally, man. I have
yeah,
a lot of friends over the across the pond, so
yeah, I
yeah.
do too. I mean, it's fun, but
Yep.
yeah, so like I just wanted to ask you again, like I always ask people that I find like that I enjoy watching or I just find interesting, and like I've been watching your channel probably since 2020 at least.
Nice.
So it's
Nice.
like there's been so many times, and like my dad loves you. Like I told my dad, I was like, oh, I got Kane and Becker on. He's like, no way, like just
That's awesome.
so yeah, it's really fun. And then like I got saw you uploaded a new video you talked about. So like that, me and my dad are probably gonna watch that tonight and pick one of those movies. So yeah. So,
Nice. Very cool. Well, I
so
appreciate you checking out the channel.
yeah. So like yeah, so see, like I'm just curious like how you kind of pick the movies that you recommend to people. Is it just stuff that you love, or is it just stuff you like, you know what, like that like I think people might like this movie or
It's really evolved over the years, because it's like as I do this, I get better at it, but also my resources get better, and then also just kind of keeping my finger on the pulse of what people like and what I think people will like. All that is changed dramatically, especially because when I started this, I had a much more narrow, I don't know, appreciation for movies. Like I didn't enjoy as many types and varieties of horror as I do now. Whereas it's like when you do this, like, and you're talking about horror movies for a living, and you start to talk to directors, and you start to talk to the actors and the producers, the and special effects departments, and like all these different people, it gives you a different appreciation, and it also, it's like I tell people, you have to first learn to appreciate a genre, like a subgenre of horror or anything for that matter, any kind of art. You got to first learn to appreciate it, then you learn to enjoy it, and eventually you learn to love it.
Yeah.
It's like people think that because they don't like something now, that means there's something wrong with it, and it doesn't really work that way. It's more about you just don't have the acquired taste for it in a lot of cases yet. But if you
Yeah.
watch enough, like it's like music's that way, visual medium art is that way, like every type of food is that way. Um, I know a lot of people can identify with the food thing. It's like how many of us have been said, try Indian food, try sushi, and you're like, that's gnarly, dude. I'm not gonna like that. That's gross, right? But then you try it once, you find the one item that you actually do like, and it's like the entryway point, and next thing Indian food is your favorite food.
Yeah.
So that's so but yeah, I use a lot of resources to find stuff. So I have a lot of podcasts that I listen to. Um, in the comments, I get recommended hundreds of movies a week. So of course I can't watch all of them, but what I can do is see which ones are like like out of the hundreds, are there ones that are doubling up, tripling up?
Yeah.
If I start to see something like, um, let me think of one that, like, there was a movie called Harbinger a couple years ago that I discovered that way, and it's an amazing movie. But I started seeing, like, a dozen or more people saying, check out this movie Harbinger. And so then it started peaking, and I was like, all right, this is worth paying attention to. And then I'll add it to like a master list of movies I need to watch. So
Yeah. So like it kind of trickles down a little bit and like, yeah. Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
again, this,
you have to kind of have like a filtering system almost.
yeah. Yeah. That's
Um,
true.
but I definitely, like, there's nothing phony about how I talk about a movie or what I talk about. So, like, period, I just will not talk about a movie if I don't like it. Like, if I don't appreciate it at least on some level.
Yeah.
But there's varying degrees. Like, just because I recommend a movie doesn't mean I love it.
Yeah.
But there could be certain things I appreciate. Like, for instance, The Hills Have Eyes, the remake, the
Yeah.
2000, what is it,
Six.
four,
It's like,
six.
yeah.
Uh, I don't love that movie. Like, that movie's mean. It's
Yeah.
not fun. It's brutal. You know, mean is the operative word of that movie. Like,
Yeah.
it is horrible to its characters, but it's a really good movie. And
Yeah.
at doing what it's trying to do, it does a really good job of executing that. And so that's a movie I'm going to recommend.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I'll say that too. Like, it's not a fun movie. It's not a one you're going to be rewatching over and over and over, but it's
Yeah.
still definitely worth seeing if you appreciate horror and the types of things that it brings
Yeah.
in that space.
Yeah, so that can I also just say that the second one of that remake, like the remakes,
Yeah.
scarred me because the guy that came out of the porta potty, that scene scarred me for like I'm scared of porta potties because of that movie now.
I
So
haven't
see,
seen that since it was in
yeah,
theaters, so
yeah,
I'd have to rewatch it.
yeah.
I don't remember that
But,
scene.
yeah, there was a scene where that one of the guys in the military was going to the bathroom, and like a guy just pops out of the porta potty and kills him, and like that's just scarred me for life now. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'm just afraid of porta potties, and it's like the dumbest thing ever, but it's just like, yeah, well, I watched it as a kid, and now like, it's just a fear I have. But
Yeah, that's awesome. I was just talking about something along those lines. What movie was it? But in the movie there's a bit. Oh, um, it's called uh Beazle.
Yeah.
Yeah, Beazle, the basement, the way it's shot and deals with the basement stuff really brought me back to like being, younger and living in a house that had a basement and just always feeling that dread whenever you needed to go down to that basement for something. Because the basement I had looked exactly like the basement in
Yeah.
that movie. I was just like, oh, dude, like not finished, just concrete,
Yeah.
cold, wet.
You know, I just saw that too, and so like now, like again, like as you said, like that brought back memories of going to a dark basement, and then but also it's just like this hidden little things that people have in their houses, like just freak me out now.
Yep,
And
yep. I just saw an amazing movie last night.
like,
It opens today. It's called Heretic. It's
oh,
the new A24 movie. Oh
yeah,
my God, that movie is so good. Definitely
you
going to be in my top 10 of the year.
okay. So I like that was one I really wanted to see. So that's good to know.
Yeah,
Like
it's
that's
so
good.
good.
Like yeah,
It's one of my favorite A24 movies in a while. Like it's really good. Like
yeah, that's
it's
good to
really
you.
well written.
Yeah,
And I was talking briefly to 3C Films on Twitter last night, and he's a big fan of it too. So, and then a bunch of people I know that watched it at Fantastic Fest, like Cody Leach and Sean Chandler, and like they were all big fans of it too. So I knew going in that I was going to, it was more than likely I was going to like it and that it was
yeah,
going to be pretty good because I trust all their opinions because they were able to see it like, what, 2 months ago or whatever at
yeah,
Fantastic Fest when it premiered. But I still didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did. I mean, it's like everything about it. Like I still need to shoot my review of it. I wasn't even sure if I was going to do a review because I'm kind of wanting to go away from doing just individual review videos.
yeah,
They don't perform that well, and it still takes up like mostly a whole day of my time to make one.
yeah,
And it's like you got to weigh out, like I only have so much time in a
yeah,
day. Like literally, I will use 90% of every waking day working on the channel.
yeah.
Like I probably spend about 16 to 18 hours a day working on the channel.
That's crazy.
And
So
like
is it?
one way or another. Like it could be just listening to a podcast or writing my notes or watching a movie, but like it's like pretty much if I'm awake, I'm working on it in one way or another.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, now that's always crazy to me, just because, like, I mean, what I wanted to ask that to see if you have like just a daytime job and this is just like a side project. But it sounds like this is kind of like you kind of take this on as your full-time
yeah,
position, like being a
I've
YouTuber.
been I've been full time for about a year and a half now because
Okay.
it was impossible. Like anybody that does, like once you get to a certain point as a channel, it's impossible to keep a regular day job.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just, like the most I would be able to put out right now is one of my list videos a week. That's it.
Yeah.
No other reviews, no podcasts, no, so like doing anything else. And even that is hard because like it takes me, like if you the entire process, like I've gotten really good at it, but it still takes about 40 hours total to make one of my videos because there's like the watching the movies, the writing the notes, then the going through everything and figuring out which movies I'm going to cover,
Yeah.
what order they're going to go in, then you got to shoot the video, which takes up a good chunk of an entire day. Then the editing takes up about 3 days, 3 to 4 days of like 10-hour days of editing, so like a good 30 hours of editing alone. So it's just like and I've gotten to where I'm able to watch a movie and edit
At the same
to a certain
time.
extent,
Yeah.
but even that is difficult because it's like if I can only really do that for about the first 20 to 30 minutes of a movie. But like once it gets into the meat of the movie, I'm not, if I'm trying to do that, I'm not going to be able to really understand the movie, really follow the movie, and really give a good representation of what the movie is.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like I have a hard time with that too, because I do reviews of like comics or books or manga and stuff. And like I'm like, oh, like I might want to write something down, but I'm like, I want to get distracted and then like get so off topic with doing something like doing notes forever like I forget about the book, like what's
Yep.
going on in the book. So yeah,
Yep. Yep. Exactly. But it's like any other muscle. Like you can, it's crazy. I'll have this headphone on this, and I like this, and in this ear I'll have an earbud, and on this ear I'm listening to the movie, and so like I am able to have the earbud on like kind of a low volume, but I can mainly only do that when I'm editing my raw footage
okay,
because like I know what I already said. So I don't really have to pay attention to what I'm saying. I'm almost more of just listening to the cadence of my voice. And like
yeah,
I know my voice and the way I talk so well. I can know just from the way I'm sucking in air. Like if I go a certain way, I know if I messed up there or if I'm pausing or like it's crazy.
yeah,
Like it's the weirdest thing when you edit, thousands of hours of yourself talking.
yeah.
It's a very strange thing that begins to happen. It's where you like know yourself in a different way. It's very interesting.
It is just I've noticed that about myself too, and like now I'm starting to take editing more seriously. Like for the longest time, I've tried to just one take it for every video. It's like okay, I'm gonna one take this, and like for me, I can't do that anymore. It's just
Even
too
the
much.
best, even the best people, they still edit, but in like different ways.
Yeah,
So like the people that seem like they do just one take, a lot of times they are, but they have like a mental um prep. They do a certain level of mental prep to where they don't have to pause and they don't mess up as often. But like there's certain people like Cody Leach, he's like I hung out with him for the first time I don't know, like what was it, 2 months ago or no, September. Um and just talking to the guy, like it's crazy. He legitimately can just do a review and almost have no cuts. Like,
yeah,
but he does do a certain amount of mental prep.
yeah,
There's also a certain cadence that you develop. So like Sean Chandler, Cody Leach, they both have like a different, and like I do as well. There's like a certain cadence that you talk, like a speed, I guess, and the way you enunciate words,
yeah,
where you kind of slow down a little bit and really overemphasize certain words in a certain pattern, and it begins to, in a strange way, make it to where you could just keep talking without having to like flub,
yeah,
like for me, um, I have a little bit of like if I don't really emphasize my words, I'll slur.
yeah,
Like I've always kind of had not as much, not exactly a lisp, but like a difficulty like hitting the hard R's and things like that. Um, and so if I get going real fast, I'll have to like, I'll say something goofy, so I'll have to re-say it or whatever. But um, you learn to enunciate words a little bit slower, especially the ones that you slide on a little bit too
yeah,
much or whatever. So there's tricks and things like that, and a lot of it, it's like impossible to really like it's impossible for someone to really teach you. It's more of
yeah,
something you just, with practice, you get more and more comfortable
yeah,
at those things. But
yeah,
I also think editing and cuts are your best friend. Like you have to just think of it this way: is like there's no harm in re-saying something,
yeah,
stopping in the middle of a video, stopping for 5 minutes in the middle of a video. I mean, there'd be times like literally where I'll just stop and I'll be sitting there just staring at the camera, not saying anything for minutes at a time because I'm trying to collect my thoughts or whatever. And some of that, sorry, I hope you can't hear the lawnmower.
no, I
Anyway,
can't.
um, some of that comes from just, you know, leaning in to the tool of being able to edit it.
Yeah,
And so if it makes it easier in that moment to get out a video that you want and sound a certain way that you want to sound and all that, don't worry about spending that extra time on the finishing side,
yeah,
because especially you'll get faster at that part too. Like the more you cut and edit, like there was a time when it would take me like probably close to, yeah, probably about 20 hours of editing to cut up my raw footage. Like that's how it would literally take like 2 to 3 hours of shooting to do a 15 to 20 minute video. It was like 2 to 3 hours of raw footage, and then it would take me about 20 hours to cut that up and make it condensed down to 15 to 20 minutes or whatever. Whereas now I can do that in about 6 hours,
Okay.
maybe less. The whole process, like it takes me only about an hour, hour and a half of shooting. And that's even knowing, like taking pauses. Cause like I've got my system down to where I know my comfort style is repeating basically roughly every sentence 3 times. Like not exactly a sentence, but like one train of thought, I guess is a better
Yeah.
way to put it. Like one train of thought, and then I'll just pause. I won't even worry if I mess up or not, and I'll just pause. And it just makes it to where I can collect my thoughts and come again, and you know, but it's like so much of that just comes from perfecting, and not just perfecting, but really customizing your style of video, your style of making the video. Because
Yeah.
like with mine, they're like I talk for a minute or two, between 1 and 2 minutes about each movie,
Yeah.
and so it would make no sense for me to like try to do the whole thing in one take. There's no way because you're
Yeah.
having to stop, talk about, and then each movie there'll be like the little synopsis that I basically read. I'm not gonna sit there and memorize the
All
synopsis
those.
for
Yeah.
every movie. Yeah, so it's like, and if in the beginning when I was trying to one take everything, all I ended up with was a sloppy mess that didn't really couldn't be as precise. It didn't have a real style to it.
Yeah.
And so it's like as you accept that, because like I think in the beginning you need to make as many videos as you can, but you also need to not worry about getting as, it's like don't worry about videos doing well. They're not going to do well for like a couple years. Like they're just not. Like the people, the YouTubers and podcasters that explode overnight, they have previous experience.
Yeah.
So often people don't realize that they were like um they're like, for instance, I try to remember her name. She does I forget what the channel's called, but she does a show called oh, what is it? Is it Weird But True, or
I think I know what you're talking about too.
but anyway, it's like super polished, and it exploded. Like she went from 0 to 1 million subscribers in like 1 year.
Yeah.
Like just she exploded, right? Like one of the fastest growing YouTubers we've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like besides like Tom Brady or some other celebrity,
Yeah.
but she had worked for YouTube, and then she worked for Netflix, like making Netflix videos and shit. And so it's
Yeah.
like she didn't, it didn't matter if she hadn't had a channel. She already knew exactly how to talk on
Yeah.
camera. She already knew the editing stuff. She already knew the camera stuff. She knew the lighting stuff. Like all that stuff takes years to figure out.
Yeah.
Like that's why I said it's been a year and a half since I went full time on this, but that was because it basically took me like the first 2.5 years to even have an idea of what I was doing.
Yeah.
Like I've always been talking about horror stuff, but it wasn't at all what it is now. And it's just like in 2 or 3 years from now, what I'll be doing will be dramatically different as well.
Yeah. So like even looking back to my first videos, like I did it on my phone. So it was like the crappy phone videos. And it,
All my
yeah.
videos,
Yeah.
every one of my videos has always been shot on a phone.
There
It
you
still
go.
is to this day.
Yeah.
I shoot everything on my phone because the cameras on a phone, if you have a good, I mean, this is like the latest iPhone.
Yeah.
I always basically every year will update my phone because it is my camera.
Yeah.
Um, and if you know how to use it, that's the thing. A lot of people don't really know how to use the phones on
Yeah.
their cameras, or I mean the cameras on their phones, and so they don't realize that your camera, and the only reason you need a camera, right? And I have a camera, but I don't use it. But the only reason you need a decent camera is if you're shooting elsewhere.
Yeah.
But if you're shooting in a room like I am with controlled lighting, your phone can do everything you need. And especially something I learned, if you're going to put clips into it, because the quality of the clips, no matter, even even if you're grabbing them straight from, like, for instance, Dead Meat. If you, I don't know if you've seen the Dead Meat channel,
Yeah.
but it's like one of the biggest horror channel, or it is the biggest horror channel. Um, he gets his clips directly ripped from the actual Blu-ray, so he gets the best possible footage you could possibly get, like
Yeah.
quality level, right? But for what he's doing, he puts like clips throughout the entire thing. He's not just using what me and every other horror YouTuber uses, which is the trailers. We just use the trailers that are
Yeah.
publicly available. For one, copyright wise, you get away with it a lot easier. You don't have to deal with as much, you know, like Dead Meat is, he has lawyers and stuff involved, and he's still almost every video has to deal with with the company, the distribution company, to get them to release the video so he can monetize it and stuff. Like, it's a huge thing. So most of us are using trailers. So immediately when you're ripping a trailer, you're not getting 4K quality.
Yeah.
Like, if you're lucky, you're getting 1080p, like you're getting, decent quality. But like, if you watch my videos, the footage of me is always higher quality than the trailer. No matter how good I can get, no matter how, like, I've figured out ways to get the best possible trailer footage quality wise, and it's still a small drop off. And so it's like, why would I need to get like a super expensive camera and lens and up my quality level of my footage even higher?
Yeah.
Makes no sense, because all you're going to do is, when you see the clips, it's going to look like it's just a bigger drop off.
Yeah.
So it's like, a phone is perfect for what we do, unless, like I said, unless you're out in the wild. Like, if you're out shooting in public, things like that, then that's where a camera, because especially because of the lighting, when you're using, natural lighting and different lighting locations and stuff, a camera has a much better ability to adjust and do those
Yeah.
things. But you gotta, it takes a lot to know how to use a camera in that way too. So,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I think like I bought this webcam. I mean, like in my webcam, I think it was up to 1080, I think, if
Mhm.
that. So I was like, I'm just gonna buy a cheap little webcam for my PC. So then, like, if I want to do a gaming video or just do a video where I want to be just sitting down and just talking, then like I do this. But like in the very beginning, I was like, I'm just gonna use my phone, and they always turned out really bad. Because at the time, I didn't know how to edit anything or like how to like make it look a little bit better and present myself better. And now I feel like I can do that better. So like,
But it's about lighting.
yeah,
Most of, like, your camera, it's not like, when you see people's footage and it doesn't look good, it's rarely the camera. I mean, unless, because like right now we're on my no,
sorry about that, guys. That I assume you got cut off. So see that what we were talking about? We were talking about something.
I don't know, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah.
there's gonna
So
be a
what were
weird
some of,
cutoff. There's gonna be a weird cutoff in the podcast episode where it's gonna be like us talking and just this. Just so
yeah.
what we were talking about. But yeah, so I'm curious, just like how did you get into horror movies or like it's that type of thing? Like
Well, um I didn't really get to watch, most horror fans, especially people that do this for a living and are like in a journalistic standard, so to speak, of it, have been, grown up with it, like ever since they were little kids. I wasn't able to watch any TV or movies when I was a kid, so it wasn't until, really, I think my first foray was Jurassic Park. I went and saw that in theaters, and I just loved it. It scared me, but I loved it, right? But my first real horror movie was when I was like 16 or 17. I was staying at my aunt's by myself. It was like one of the first times I'd ever gone out of town by myself, and so like it was a whole experience. And she had like one of those giant walls of VHS tapes, because I'm old. This was back in the day. It was like, I don't know, probably mid '90s, late '90s, something like that. Or I guess it would have been mid '90s. Uh, and most of them were ones that she had just copied from TV, because that's what everybody did back then. You would just record your favorite movies or whatever. Nobody bought shit once the VCR came out. Anyway, and I watched Pet Cemetery because it had just gone on HBO, and she had just watched it, and she she was telling me, "Oh, you need to see this movie." My cousin was like, "You need to watch this movie," and so I stayed up late by myself and just watching horror movies. I watched this. The first thing I watched, I forget, I don't even know what it was called, but it was basically like a modern day version of War of the Worlds. They tried to make like a modern day version. So instead of it just being like, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the whole H.G. Wells reading um, War of the Worlds on the radio, it caused all this craziness back in, like 40s or some 30s, 40s, 50s, yeah, 40s, I think. Anyway, and so they tried to do a modern day version of that in the 90s where it was like they had video footage and it was like a whole found footage thing. I wish I remember the name of it because I would like to track it down now and watch it again and see like if it was, but at the time it scared me. I was like, oh, this is, and so then I follow that up. So that got me in the right headspace, and then I followed that up with the original Pet Cemetery movie, and it scared the living hell out of me. And I just fell in love with horror right there. Um, but even then, I didn't become like a huge horror fan yet. It was like because I was in music. And so like when you're like a friend told me a long time ago, he said if you want to really be successful at whatever you're doing, you have to like fully 100% be committed into this. And if you're even just a little bit sidetracked with other things, you won't be nearly as successful. And it's one of those things like people that have tons of hobbies are generally not. They've already become successful. So like you're already a wealthy lawyer or whatever, and so now they are obsessed with golf and play a bunch of golf, right? But the people that are really focused and trying to do a great thing, trying to make something successful or whatever, they're hyper focused. They do just that thing. And so I was in music. I was singing and like that was my passion. And for about the next 10 years or so until my late 20s or no, into my 30s even. So like 12 years. Anyway, um and then after that I got but I would always still see like whatever the latest horror movies were that were in theaters. But it wasn't like I am now where I've just like, I dig deep and like watch all the, underground stuff. Um, and then I got into visual medium art and I did that painting and sculpture and stuff until 2020. And in 2020, when the world shut down, I couldn't do my art anymore. And I started having a lot of really bad health problems because I'm, an insulin dependent diabetic and I almost died in 2020 a couple times. And so I couldn't even really get out of bed. So the only thing I could do, the world was shut down and I couldn't really do anything anyway. And so I just was watching horror movies because it was like finally I had time in my life to where I could just really watch a lot of horror movies. Like stuff. I mean, like I said, I had seen all the big ones that were in theaters. So I was like your average horror fan, that's seen, the Conjuring movies and maybe gone as deep as Hereditary, but they haven't gone into the weird, like they haven't seen Frankenhooker or, a 4K cut like special edition, you know what I mean? Like, um, and so in 2020, I started really digging into it, and that was also the same time I started the channel because I just wanted to. I was finding all these movies on like Tubi and stuff, and everybody's locked down too, and everybody was looking for things to watch, and so I was bored and just started making these videos and basically letting people know like, hey, these are good horror movies I discovered. Like I remember the first video I made, or maybe it wasn't the very first, but it was one of the first. Was I had found the movie um, Overlord on Blu-ray for $5 at Walmart, and I had never seen it. And I went home and watched it, and I was just like, "This is awesome!" So I made a video about it because I also found it was available on Tubi, and so like it just started me down this whole rabbit hole. And so it's like I said earlier, it's like it's layers, it's like it evolves. And it's like the more I do this, the more I discover movies that I didn't even know about. And there was a time like I'm not watching movies at the same pace now, but for probably 2020, all of 2021 and 2022, I was watching at least 20 movies a week. Like at least. I've lost you. I can't hear you.
Oh, there you go. Sorry, I hit my mic on
Oh, there we go.
accident.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I was like, oh, I can't hear you. Anyway, yeah, I was watching like at least 20 movies a week, if not more, plus whatever was in theaters. Now I see everything that's in theaters. Like if it's horror and it's in a theater, I see it. And then beyond that, I try to watch like at least one movie a day on average.
Yeah,
So like at least 7 movies a week.
yeah,
But sometimes more, sometimes less because like the video I put out today, I talk about two brand new series, two horror series. And so, a series, it's like,
takes
each one of
longer.
those is yeah, each one of those one was 8 episodes, the other one was 10, and so you figure it's about an hour an episode. So, it took me, but like both those, I pretty much binged them for the most part too. So they still only took me like a day or so to
Yeah,
watch each one. But yeah. So,
yes,
but
like
sometimes I get burned out and I have to take a break too. Like, I know that sounds weird to a lot of people. Like if you watch horror movies, it's like I know a lot of people that watch horror movies every single day and
yeah,
never get burned out. But there's a difference between watching this many and then also talking about this many
yeah,
and then also listening to constant podcasts, other YouTube channels like about so it's like it gets to be not it's not that you don't enjoy watching the movies anymore, but I gotta like take a step away from the whole horror space in general sometimes. And so I'll just watch stupid cooking videos or stuff about aliens or
no, there you go.
yeah.
Talking about funny experiences that when I was a kid, uh, so that when my first introduction to horror was my dad. My dad used to let me watch horror movies as like a 6 year old, 6, 7 years old, which still have done. But so like at night when I couldn't sleep, I would come down and like speak, can I take over the TV? My dad would be like, no, you're not taking over the TV. And then like he put on a horror movie. And like half the time that's why I couldn't sleep was because I saw a movie that just scared the shit out of me as a kid. He's like, no, we're gonna watch another one. And now and like again, I kind of grew that love for it. And again, as you said,
Yeah, I
like
don't I used to there was a time when I would have said that I think that's bad for a kid, but I don't, man, because like the best people I've ever known grew up with horror, and like I honestly think it helps us deal with fear, helps us deal with like different uh PTSD from things. Like there's so many things I think that it can really help a human being develop. So I don't know if it's a bad thing. Like I
yeah,
would never tell a parent that they're doing a bad thing by
yeah,
exposing, every parent's got to kind of make their own decision. But there was definitely a time when, like when I was raising my son, where I didn't know if it was a good idea, but I ended up, I think he was probably about, I think 10 or around 10 is when I finally started letting him watch some
yeah.
horror movies. And so even still, that's still pretty young.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Like my dad, like just to mess with me, we'd be like, oh, we're gonna watch, like Invasion of the Saucer Man, or like just the original Night of the Living Dead, just to get me into horror a little bit with the easier ones that are a little bit older that nowadays are a little bit goofy, but and then like, now I love horror because of my dad, and like that me and him
Exactly.
still, that me and him still watch our movies every weekend together and talk about it and stuff. So
Like one of the first horror things I fell in love with was Tales from the Crypt, the TV
yeah,
series. And like that's I feel like that stuff like that, or or you can even take it a step further and like Goosebumps and stuff.
yeah,
Like, that stuff's still horror related, but it's like great for entryway point to a kid, so you're not shocking their system.
yeah,
Uh, but I don't know. Some people are just more drawn to it
yeah,
than others. And I don't know how much of that even has to do with like what parents introduced them to. Because like
yeah,
ever since I can remember. I've always been more attracted to the like theatrics and the aesthetics and everything of the darker, creepy horror world. Like,
Yeah,
ever since I can remember, I loved the look of especially the old black and white classic horror movies
yeah,
because I don't really consider those horror, and I did see a lot of those when I was younger. I just they are horror movies, but I mean, like, I don't really they never really scared me, so I don't really consider those to be like um my first horror movie introduction.
yeah,
Like, because Jurassic Park scared me way more than the original Frankenstein or
yeah,
Dracula. Like those.
yeah,
But I adore those movies. So I still think they're horror. But that's an argument I argue with people all the time. Like, so many people think that horror has to be scary,
yeah,
and I don't agree at all. Like, I feel
yeah,
like horror is people forget what the word horror stands for. It's a shortened for the word horrifying
yeah,
or horrific. Like it's whatever you think is horrific or horrifying to you. That
yeah,
doesn't mean it's necessarily scary because like nothing at all scares me now. Like, I
yeah,
haven't seen a movie to scare me and like to actually scare me. It's probably been probably close to 20 years. Yeah, about 20 years probably since the last time I really felt scared. But I still feel like when I watched Hereditary, I still was disturbed by
yeah,
that. It horrified me on lots of different layers, but did it scare me? No. So it's like,
yeah,
it has to affect you. It has
yeah,
to bring out that horrified feeling, but that doesn't
yeah,
mean scary. Too many people think, and that's why a lot of people will label horror movies as scary movies. It's like, no,
yeah,
you know, like in the UK, they'll call them scary movies, not horror movies. And then so
yeah.
there's a lot of that confusion a lot of times with the verbiage, especially when you're cross cultures and stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
like, I definitely won't put something like Killer Clowns from Outer Space or, again, like the original Frankenstein in the same category as, like, Terrifier
yep,
or like The Sadness, or it's like or like some of these movies that take it to that extreme, where it's like,
yep. And yet they're all still horror to me.
yeah,
And I also wouldn't consider any of those movies you just named off as scary.
now,
Like the sadness will disturb you.
yeah,
Terrifier 1, 2, 3, they'll all disturb you.
yeah,
But I don't know if I'd say any of those are really scary.
no,
They have dread in them, they have anxiety, they have, foreboding, they have, like all these other emotions, but I don't know if I'd say scary.
yeah,
But I also have a hard time defining what
scary,
scary is because scary is so subjective, which is also why I just don't feel like that has to be a part of
yeah,
horror
yeah,
because it's literally different for everybody and it's different for you depending on when you are in your life. Like I said, I was scared to death by Pet Cemetery when I was 16.
yeah,
The movie's not scary at all. Like,
yeah,
if I watch that movie now, I'd be like, dude, it's not scary. I love it still, but there's nothing scary about it.
yeah,
It's just like there will be people that will see Heretic and it'll scare the piss out of them. They'll be so
yeah,
scared, but I didn't find it to be scary, but
yeah,
I still think it's an amazing horror movie.
yeah,
I did feel other things from it.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, like like it does feel like for me, like Infested got me a little bit
Mm,
because I hate spiders and like I have arachnophobia, so that got to me.
yep.
It's kind of like, oh, I hate spiders. So like I felt that skin, like my skin crawl and stuff. So definitely
Yeah, it's
depends.
funny because I actually talk about the other Spider movie this year, Sting,
Yeah,
um, in this video today that I put out. And uh, I think it's so interesting how you have two different movies that are about spiders, but yet they feel very different.
yeah,
Because Sting is all about like that big creature feature, it reminds me of like the 1950s kind of big monster movie.
yeah,
Whereas I don't think it's anywhere near as disturbing as Infested.
yeah,
Like it's more fun and there's more humor in it, but yet they're both still about spiders,
yeah.
you
And
know?
again, that's what I love about horror. So you could have that same topic, but it could be have a very different vibe about
Yep, because it's
how
all
they
about your
perceive.
perspective, like then how you approach that subject. And that's why I am just so in love with Heretic, man, because uh they deal with a lot of things we've seen before in it, but it feels so, but at the same time, it feels so unique so refreshing because of of how well written it is and how well the acting is, like how good the acting is in it. And it's funny, like there are so many things that can make a movie feel unique, feel refreshing, feel like a really good movie. You know, you could not talk about the same subject. You could have, and that's why like I'll argue all the time with DJ, my co-host on the podcast I do, because like he's not a fan of the Terrifier movies. He's like, you know, at first he was like, they're just bad movies, and I'm like, you know, because they're bad scripts, and I'm like, you know, you could have a really basic script in a movie and not really well, like not a good story, so to speak. It could be real basic and still be a great horror movie
Yeah,
because there are other things that you can do in it to make like and I don't think this is a great movie by any means, but In a Violent Nature,
yeah,
it did some things like that were amazing, and it didn't matter. Like a lot of people knock that movie because of the story, and I was like, I
yeah,
don't care. It's basically a Friday the 13th script. It's like
yeah,
there is no story.
yeah,
But that's not, you know, that movie to me was just held back by it was just so slow.
yeah,
You know, there was just a lot of like waiting for the next kill. And so that made it tough for me to be like, this is a great movie.
yeah,
But I still really appreciated it because they were experimenting and trying new things. And I think we're gonna see a really good horror movie that's gonna be inspired by that at some point. You
yeah,
know, like the over the shoulder, like from the killer. Like I love that. We need to see that. We need to see a slasher movie that is more fast paced. Like we need to see a Terrifier, right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
from art's perspective. Like
yeah.
imagine that shit. Like
Yeah, I know
through
that'd
the
be.
eyes of art.
So I mean, that'd be so fun, and that reminds me of God, like, what was that mockumentary about the guy who was trying to be a killer?
Yeah, Rise of Leslie Vernon,
Yeah, like I mean,
behind the mask, behind the
yeah,
mask.
yeah. I mean, like
I love. It's one of my favorite
yeah.
fucking movies, and it blows me away that still more people don't talk about that movie.
So
Like,
like I love
ugh,
that movie just because again that shift in perspective of like now we're gonna focus on the killer and like I loved it. Like I just loved that shift.
that might be the biggest crime in horror that didn't get a franchise.
Yeah, I know. It's
Like
so
the guy who played him was charismatic. I mean, perfect. He was what we are seeing now with Arthur the Clown.
yeah,
That character should have been, and I just don't know exactly what I didn't have my finger on the pulse of the horror world and movie world or whatever at the time, so I don't know what all caused that movie to not get that. Whereas like with Terrifier, I could tell you step by step. Like, you know, I've followed it from the beginning. I've had my finger on the pulse. I've talked to Damien Leone, the filmmaker that made those movies. Like a lot of times I've hung out and talked quite a bit with David Howard Thornton. Like, you know, these guys, like I wouldn't say they're friends, but I've talked enough and been around them and heard enough of the things they've talked about and this and that. Like I know what has built that and why we have a Terrifier 3 making, you know, 30 plus million in
yeah.
theaters, you know what I mean? But I don't know why with that, but it's just sad sometimes there's these movies that just don't, you know,
Catch
like
on.
another one of my favorites like that is The Hills Run Red
Yeah,
with Babyface. And I'm
yeah,
like, man, that's another one. There's no reason that shouldn't have been a franchise.
yeah,
Like you can say there's flaws with the movie,
yeah,
but no matter what, like that killer Babyface is so iconic. He was so imposing, so unique looking, and like, and that even had a big budget. Was done by a big studio, but they didn't push the movie at all.
yeah.
I know
See,
that's a
that's
lot of what happened with that one.
so see, I know Trick or Treat kind of has its following now, but like I feel like it took how many years for them to get a second Trick or Treat movie and have
Yeah,
Sam. He was
it's
like such a
insane.
famous killer, and Sam's such a modern day horror icon. I feel like, and like it took him
Well,
how long?
that movie for probably 10 years now has been talked about by most horror fans as like must
Yeah,
watch Halloween movie. You know, in the
yeah,
last like 5 years or so, we've started seeing like all the trick or treat merchandise at Spirit and like
yeah,
stuff like that. Um, But with that one, it's like very obvious what happened with that because
Yeah.
that movie never even got a theatrical
Yeah.
release. That movie, and that's part of I think what happened with The Hills Run Red and with The Rise of Leslie Vernon is those movies all came out at the time when um, DVDs and Blu-ray. I don't even think Blu-rays were out yet, but like DVDs were just becoming a big thing in like the early
Yeah.
2000s, like 2005, 2007, 10, like in that range.
Yeah.
Um, and there was this whole thing where a lot of companies were making more money from DVD sales than they were from in theaters,
Yeah.
especially when you include the advertising thing. We're seeing that happening now all over again with streaming, and you see movies like Prey,
Yeah.
the Predator sequel, getting straight to Hulu release. You know,
Yeah.
we're seeing that happen now. The difference is back then when you put it on DVD, if you didn't promote it as well, sometimes they just nobody ever heard about them. They just
Yeah,
would
it's
disappear.
yeah, I got lost in the
Uh,
sauce a little bit.
Whereas streaming now, because there's so many YouTubers that talk about movies, there's so many like different ways for people to find out about movies. On top of that, like Netflix, all they have to do now, they don't have to promote a movie. They literally just got to put it on your screen. They
Yeah.
can control what you see. And so, like, if they put a movie on there, people are going to see it. And if
Yeah.
it's halfway decent, it's going to, you know, it's going
Take
to blow up.
off.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's one of those like things are changing now where back then people had to promote it still. A Blu-ray had to still get, or a DVD had to still get, if it went straight to, because that was in the time where DVDs were big, but where people were used to getting most of their movies were the rental places. And
Yeah.
those were all closing. Like Blockbuster, all that stuff was closing. And so you had this weird window where a lot of movies kind of got lost in the sauce.
Yeah.
And some of those have gained a cult following now, um, like you were saying with Trick or Treat,
Yeah.
like quite a few movies like that. And that's what I love about streaming is because you could have a tiny, I mean, like a good example is the the found footage movie Milk and Cereal
Yeah.
that a YouTuber put out this year. Like they're just YouTubers. They made their own little movie, spent like a couple $100 to make it, and put it on their channel, and it's got like over 1 million views now. It's just like because it's so much easier to find things. Like if something's
Yeah.
good, you can in one click share it with all your friends, and then they share with all their friends.
Yeah.
You didn't have that in that era, and so I think that's why we have a lot of like kind of dead movies from that era that just didn't get what they should have
Yeah.
gotten.
Yeah. I mean, like not just that, but I feel like like what you said with like things getting lost, but sometimes like I remember Blockbuster. So say, I'm old enough to remember the end of Blockbuster, and just like if people saw like I remember my friends or the people I talked to, it was always like, oh, if it's straight to DVD or straight to streaming, it was kind of
It's not worth
oh
seeing. Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
But nowadays you see so many things that are straight to streaming. That's like, oh, that was pretty good. And so see, I think that's kind of changed too now. Like
That's what I mean. That's what's changing is
yeah,
because there was that time, like until really 2020, if it was straight to streaming, it was dog shit.
yeah,
They were stuff that was just dumped there and it generally wasn't worth seeing. But in 2020, when that was the only place people could release movies, you started seeing more of that. But we are still seeing that to a certain extent
yeah,
because like Salem's Lot just got dumped on Max it's October, the beginning of October.
yeah,
And like I would not say that movie's dog shit. A lot of people
yeah,
say that. I personally don't agree with that at all. I do think it's decent. I don't think it's great.
yeah,
I feel like there was a lot of studio meddling, and they should have just, if they were going to release it just to Max like they did, they should have just released a full cut because it's supposed to be basically a 3 hour movie, and they
okay,
cut an hour out of the movie and then released it. It's like if you're going to release it on Max anyway, you might as well release the 3 hour. What's the
yeah,
like that movie's been screwed over in like every possible way. Like
I know.
it's insane. It's
So
one of
yeah,
those that COVID screwed it up. Then the writer strike screwed it up. Like Warner Brothers ownership change, and like I mean they've it almost got the Catwoman treatment, or not Catwoman, Batgirl
yeah,
treatment, where they just deleted the movie. Like they
yeah,
almost deleted Salem's Lot. So I'm glad that
yeah,
we at least have something, but that movie should have been a lot better than it is. But
Yeah. I mean, again, like I think 2020 and then the whole writer strike really fucked over a lot of movies in a lot of different ways. Like just
that's why the best movies we're seeing that have come out over the last 4 years are all the little indie movies,
yeah,
especially A24 and Neon, who didn't weren't hit by the writer strike because they made deals quickly with the writers union or with the actors union and shit
yeah,
with Actors Guild, and so they weren't hurt by it. A24 was able to, and those movies can still also get away with very limited cast, very small productions. They can
yeah,
shoot them in Canada, they can shoot them in Zimbabwe, they can shoot them in Hungary. It doesn't even matter. It's such
yeah,
a small production that they can get creative and not be encumbered by all the Hollywood madness. And we're
yeah,
seeing a lot of that's why we're seeing so many of these big, Hollywood movies coming out that are just trash.
yeah,
And even the Hollywood ones that are good, like The First Omen, are
yeah,
still a kind of smaller production. They're not quite as, they're not on like a level of like a superhero movie. They're not
yeah,
a $200 million movie.
yeah.
Those are ones that get affected so much by a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, it's because all the money. I mean, like I look like that. It was a Miller movie.
Yeah, the red coat or red whatever that new
Yeah,
Christmas one that's coming out. It's like $250 million
yeah,
is what they spent on that movie. That
yeah,
new it's like The Rock and whatever the hell comes out. Like they're promoting the hell out of it now, and I'm just like that movie's gonna lose so much
yeah.
money.
And it. I mean, like I saw the trailer. I mean, again, like I don't want to.
What's his name's in it? Chris.
Is it Chris Evans?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Chris Evans. Yep.
I mean, like I saw that movie like in like actually going to see Deadpool movie, and I was like, I don't know if this is going to do that well. Just looking at it now, I'm like I could tell it's probably not going to be that good of a movie. Just now, like, which is bad. Like it shouldn't be that way, but
Oh God, it's what I got. These Hollywood companies are so dumb. It's like if you spend 250 million on making a movie, then that means you're also spending about 100 million at least more to promote that movie.
yeah,
So now your movie's got to make almost a billion, or it's got to because you got to double whatever. So like if you spend 300, if you spend 250 million like they did, they spend at least 100 million at least. So that's now 350 million they're in the
yeah,
hole. They have to give half of everything they make in the theaters to the theaters.
yeah,
So that means that movie has to make 700 million to break even.
yeah,
That's why people don't get it when they're like, you know, that movie made whatever. Like, no, you don't understand. That movie had to, it's like, that's why everybody was so just like, what are they doing with the Avatar movies? Because we're talking about he spent $1 billion to make these two movies, Avatar 2 and 3 or whatever.
yeah,
Spent $1 billion. Everybody's just like, dude. But in his case, they are making like $1 billion to
yeah,
do it. He's one of the few. James Cameron's like one of the few people that just never misses. Everything he makes somehow just
it's
makes like
yeah,
crazy money. But
yeah,
but even like Beetlejuice 2, which is done pretty decent because of how much money it cost, it's still gonna probably maybe make a little bit, but like a little bit,
yeah,
it definitely won't, it's not gonna make them tons of money. So Hollywood just like they're just like throwing away money, especially companies like WB, man. They're the
yeah.
worst at this right now.
Oh, I know. And again, like I think that's why Two Fire is such a weird case because the new one made like what 30 or 40 million dollars, and
Which
like
movie?
the new Two Fire, the third one,
Yep, yep. I think
and
it's at
like
like around 30 million right now. But then you also got to figure it's going to make a bunch from streaming,
yeah.
from merchandising. Like that movie's making so much money
And like
because they
that,
spent 5 million total, including promoting it or whatever on Terrifier 3.
yeah. So like that was not that big. Again, that's what I was saying. Like that was not that big of a movie, and I think the way it traveled was just a lot of people were talking about it, and I feel like I think
All
that's
that
the best. Yeah, it's just
they almost haven't like there wasn't trailers for it. They
nah,
didn't like when you went to see movies, there wasn't really trailers. Like that movie was the production cost was not much at all. Most
nah,
of the money they spent on promoting it was like they would hire different companies like that would help with social media campaigns and
yeah,
stuff. You know, like they spent, I think they spent less than $1 million to promote that one.
yeah.
You know,
But I mean, like
like
I
most
even
into the movie, like they spent a lot of money on special effects and stuff in that movie.
yeah. So I mean, like I even saw like an interview that Damien Leone did, and he talked about how this was the first movie
Shit,
with.
dude, I'm way off. Terrifier 3 is at 52 million right
Oh
now.
my God, that's crazy.
Yeah, and that's just in the United States. You know,
Yeah,
like they haven't been able to do, to have it overseas. Like a lot of the
yeah,
countries haven't got it yet. Like
yeah,
because it's not rated. And
yeah,
so like countries like the UK, Australia, they won't take it. I think like yeah, I don't even think Canada has got it yet either. So
yeah,
like it's still up in the air if they're going to release an R-rated cut so it can be theatrical in other countries.
yeah,
But it doesn't look like they're going to. It looks like they're just going to, it'll be available streaming,
yeah.
and that's when those other countries will be able to see it.
Yeah, I mean, like, just like I saw a thing with Damien Leone, like he talked about how just for fun he pitched this to Hollywood studios just because, and like he even said, like I knew I wasn't gonna join a studio, I just wanted to see what they would offer. And like he said after the fact, like, that when they started filming, that this is the first time they had people on set telling them like you can't use this, you can't use that, like I don't know how true it is, and like I could be mishearing it, but like he said, like this is like Hollywood kind of getting back at him for not doing a big studio movie with them, and that now they're trying to do all this stuff and like be like, okay, like you can't have kids on set this time, or we can't use this type of blood
Oh,
when all
well,
these other studios
it's
are,
I don't know if I don't really think he's saying they're getting back at him as much as this is kind of the price you pay when you start to get on everybody's radar,
yeah,
but Terrifier 2 was not rated either.
now,
Like he knows he's not going to get a rating, and so they don't even bother trying to send it to, like, I don't even think they sent, I know they sent Terrifier 2 to the ratings bureau, but I don't even think they sent in Terrifier 3. They're just releasing it R-rated because, the amount of, like, once you're on the radar of those companies, like you'll see these smaller little nobody budget movies like get away sometimes with some really crazy stuff. But it's because they're so small. Like trying to think of one, but rarely will you see one that comes out that a lot of people know about enough that $52 million makes on it, that they aren't, that's on their radar. And so they,
yeah,
when it's on their radar, it's like it's kind of like YouTube, right?
yeah,
The bigger your YouTube channel is, the more copyright claims you get, the more YouTube, like the thumbnail for my stupid video today. I was up till 3 in the morning last night trying to get one of my thumbnails to go through because YouTube kept saying that my thumbnails were too adult, basically.
yeah,
And we're going to
yeah,
make my video be able to only be partially monetized, which is part of why I think my video is doing so shitty starting out. I'm hoping it'll pick up as it goes because yeah, it's not doing good.
yeah. I
But
mean,
yeah, that's part of it. Like the bigger my channel gets, the more YouTube likes to fuck with the stuff that I'm doing.
yeah,
That's why you see bigger channels, they don't even swear, and they'll bleep out everything. Whereas like channels like mine that's still pretty small, I can get away with swearing. I can get away with a lot of stuff and I never have problems with it. But like the stuff I could get away with, you know, 2 years ago, I can't at all now. Like copyright stuff. If I use any video that's 10 seconds long or more and has audio attached, they'll hit me every single time.
yeah. But you know, that's like I just got hit with that a couple months ago. I did a YouTube short about a video game, and like in the short, I was like, like I dropped the F-bomb. I was like, how the fuck are you guys so good at this game? And it just immediately it was like, no, you can't do that. I was like, oh, okay,
Yeah, they're a lot harder
yeah,
on shorts though.
yeah,
Like you can get it because the thing is it's 30 uh their rule is 30 seconds.
yeah,
And so a short's going to get you pretty much every time because you're
yeah,
looking at a minute at most. So wherever you said fuck,
yeah,
like when you start a video, if you say fuck in the first, 30 seconds, they're going to get you every time, no matter how
yeah,
big your channel is, right?
yeah,
But shorts because they're such short content. Because the way it works is if they think a little kid or someone is they're almost forced to hear or see whatever adult thing you're doing
Yeah.
when it's that short of like you could on accident click on it and bam you're hit with it before there's any warning, but it's like if once you're 30 seconds in or more, it's like this is you're choosing to stay here, you're
Yeah.
choosing to, whatever happens now, that's on you, you're choosing to stay here.
Yeah.
So that's why they're so hard on shorts, because like I've gotten like I can't get away with anything on shorts. It's part of
Yeah.
why I'm not a big fan of shorts. Like when you
Yeah.
do horror stuff, like most of my clips, if there's any gore at all or anything sort of violent or, a lot of times they'll get me on the shorts.
Yeah.
So I just don't even try to monetize the shorts, or I don't even do them.
Yeah.
But they supposedly just changed it to where now shorts will be able to be 3 minutes, I think it is.
Okay.
Or no, 2 30 seconds. Yeah, 2 minutes and 30 seconds. They'll be able to be that long. And
Yeah.
that I'm looking forward to, because then I'll actually start probably doing more shorts because it's
Yeah.
more substantial kind of thing. Trying to keep it under a minute, it's just like
Yeah.
not worth
Hard.
it.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm just looking at the time. So it's like I said, we have to cut it. So like I would actually love for you to come back on if you're okay with that.